Hey guys, so I've got a bit of a different video for you today, but one I'm sure that you'll like nevertheless. Those of you that follow my content know that I bought a property in Madrid last year, and this year, 2022, I have begun to renovate that property. The property was in a good condition when I got it, it's habitable, I live here right now, but a lot of the furniture that I got with the apartment was very old, and a lot of the design and aesthetics of the property as well were very old. And as the property has a lot of potential, I decided to start getting to work on remodeling and renovating it this year. So in this video, I'm going to share with you my tips for a cost-efficient home improvement project. I'm going to share with you some of the work from my apartment that's been done so far and compare it with what it looked like before. And I'm also going to share with you the approximate cost of the work that's been done so far as well. So let's get right into it. So as I alluded to in the intro, this is a relatively old apartment. It was built in the 60s. A lot of apartment buildings in Spain were built a long time ago. So there are a lot of older properties in the country, whatever city you're in. Nevertheless, the layout and the size of the property meant that it had good potential for possible renovation works, which I didn't have the specifics in mind when I bought it, but I knew that probably at some point there would be some work that I would do on the property. And so keeping in mind that having bought this property with the idea of living in it in the present and then maybe upgrading at a later point in time and having it as a rental property, my goal in renovating this property and doing the upgrades was to do so in a very cost-efficient manner. That's to say, when making upgrades, I would spend the money that is necessary to make the upgrades, but no more, with the goal that the added value that this will create in the property, the forced equity, if we want to call it that, would exceed the value of the money spent on upgrades and repairs and renovations, etc. So essentially a profitable renovation is what I'm looking for here. So before I take you on a tour of my living area to show you what's been done, here are a few tips that I've kept in mind when doing my renovation work that has helped me to save some money and not spend in excess. The first thing relates to materials. Now, particularly with what's going on in the world with supply chain breakdowns and high inflation, the cost of materials is inevitably increasing. So for me, not overspending on materials is absolutely key. And when you go into your local hardware store, it's very easy to be enticed into them expensive materials by simply looking at, the model kitchens, the model living rooms that they've got set out, and you look and you think, oh wow, that floor looks amazing, or that kitchen countertop looks amazing. And you look at the price and of course it's extortionate. And keeping in mind, of course, they're priced by meter squared. As the meters add up, then of course that price is going to increase as well. What you will often find is that there are similar materials at a lower price that will still give the desired effect of what you want in your home. So once you've found the look and feel that you want to have in a particular room, look on the lower end of the pricing spectrum for materials that give that desired effect, and it will save you a lot in costs. Nevertheless, although it's good to look for ways to save money, my second tip is don't compromise on the quality. When I was having some work done in my apartment, one of the guys that was doing some work for me, he told me something in Spanish, and in English it would translate to the cheapest things end up costing a lot. And I couldn't agree more. If you invest in, let's say, a home appliance that is simply the cheapest on the market, or a material that again is the cheapest, then yes, it might do the job for a period of time. But more often than not, what will probably happen is it will have a much shorter lifetime than perhaps a higher quality machine, a higher quality air conditioning unit, for example. It will probably break down easier, and low quality materials may end up being the cause of more serious problems in the house. So, to go for an extreme case, maybe humidity or leaking or something like that. You never know what it could be, but never compromise on the quality of something. Remember, this is your home. This is probably going to be your biggest investment, and it's important that you keep it in a good state. Tip number 3 is to hire professionals for the highly specialized work. So particularly when it comes to electrical work or when it comes to plumbing, it's much better to get a specialist in this because the level of expertise they have, the knowledge they have is very valuable. And when something goes wrong with the electricity, or if something goes wrong with the plumbing, it can really cause havoc in a property. So in my opinion, it's definitely worth paying a specialist for plumbing work or electricity work because, they have that specialist knowledge and they'll be able to make sure that everything is up to scratch and even compliant if there's any laws in place regarding this stuff. Tip number 4 relates to the non-specialist tasks. So for example, it might be setting up furniture, painting a wall, for example. Consider the DIY option because, there are people who will do a good professional job for you. And again, if you want to pay them a bit more to do that, then by all means go for it. But you'll be surprised how useful YouTube tutorials are when it comes to painting a wall or filling in a mark or a dent in the wall that's been left there. As we go through the work I've done on the property, you'll see there is some stuff I've done myself, and when we get to the costing, you'll see that it came out very, very cheap as well. So you can consider the DIY option for stuff that, you know, is a bit more easier to do and doesn't require specialist knowledge. Now that I've walked you through my tips, let's go into my living room and I'll show you the work that's been done so far versus what it looked like before. Okay guys, so let me tell you a little bit about the work that I did in the living room. So if we take a look at the space, obviously you can see nice and modern, nice and bright and luminous now. Before, this had like old furniture in it. You know, it was comfortable, it could be used, but when I got in the apartment, I knew it had a lot of potential and it was in good condition, but just a lot of the furniture and a lot of kind of the apartment in itself had a very like old feel to it. So I really wanted to give it like some new life and make it look a lot brighter, a lot more modern, and at the same time give it kind of a very simple modern look. So that's what I've tried to do here. So maybe start with the lights. So up here before there used to be just a general light bulb, and actually these lights up here, before there was actually a ceiling fan. You might have seen it in some of the old videos. There was actually no light up there. So I just had, and again in the videos you'll have seen a lamp in the background, and this was kind of how this space was illuminated before I put these lights in. So, you know, like you can see it right now, like this is actually quite a luminous apartment. But before putting these lights in and before making these changes, it was a little bit dull. And at night, you know, the lighting wasn't great. I'll put a clip in with the lights on at night to see how different it is, because what you will have seen in some of my old videos is kind of the level of lighting that it had, and now it's completely different. So another part of increasing the light into the apartment and kind of giving it a more modern feel up here. So the curtains used to be really old. There was like an old brown wooden bar and some heavy kind of dull colored curtains. So I went for something you know, like bright white. It lets light in. These translucent curtains, so they let the light in. And you can see the bar up there. I changed it now, it's metal silver, so it's got a nice more modern feel as well. So these curtains definitely let more light in, and I've still of course got the persianas, as they're called in Spanish, the blinds, and I can pull down from the outside as well. Now I'm gonna pull the sofa away for just a second to show you something that I did here. So you can see, I don't know if you can see it on the camera actually, if you look very closely, or if you look down there even, you've seen down there is a kind of a set of wires that have been cut and taken off. So there actually used to be a radiator here, and there were two more in the apartment as well. These were, one, taking up a lot of space, and two, massive electricity consumers when they were in use. So I decided to essentially have them removed to save electricity costs down the line, find an alternative heating solution, and then create more space. So what I ended up doing here, you can kind of see it there, a little line on the wall from where it was. So what I actually did was, behind the radiators was kind of the old wall, so those classic Spanish walls that have the bumps and the points. So I really just sanded that down and then painted over the top of it, and then putting the sofa in front of it hides it. Even if you see this, like, I don't think it looks that bad. I'm sure a professional could have done a better job, but I did this myself, and I don't think it's come out too bad, to be honest. And so we talk about heating and cooling for a second. So those alternative solutions, if you look up here, that's a brand new air conditioning unit that I had put in. There was one actually in when I arrived in the apartment, but it was quite old. It was from about 2011. And it wasn't working to its full potential. You know, you could kind of feel the breeze coming out the machine, but the rest of the room was still warm. So unless you were sat like directly under that air conditioning, it wasn't really that good. And same for the heating. Well, the heating, you could feel it a little bit actually. It would heat the room. So essentially this is a brand new air conditioning unit. The whole room feels a lot cooler, and the heating function, and it also has a heating function. So the plan is to use this in the winters. I'm sure it's a lot more energy efficient than old accumulator radiators that I had in. Also, prior to upgrading the air conditioner, I only had the one unit, so the old unit was there. I now have this new one and a second one on the other side of that door where my bedroom is. So during these hot summer nights in Madrid, I've been able to sleep like a baby because of the air conditioning unit that I put in there. And then in terms of decoration and furniture, you can see you've got the nice TV stand here. This is just an IKEA TV stand actually. Not very expensive, nice and easy to build, very simple, very modern, and it adds to the luminosity of the living room area as well. And then for the couch, so you can see this is the couch I got. I was initially looking at IKEA, but this one is actually from Conforama, and I got it on sale. I think it's the first time I've been excited about a furniture sale. If you grew up in the UK, we always had the DFDS sale, and we always wondered like, when's it gonna end and when's it gonna be of use to me? Well, the Conforama sale that was on, this is where I got this one. So this is a really nice sofa, nice and comfortable. Nice, yeah, very nice and comfortable. And yes, I got it for about half the price that it's supposed to be. So nice. And then again, just to add to the aesthetic, I got this rug. This wasn't very expensive at all, you know, just from one of the local supermarkets here. Nice and cheap, and still adds to the nice aesthetic of the living room area. Now, one thing you might notice that hasn't changed is actually the floor. So the floor design is still as it was when I came into the apartment. I actually quite like it, you know. At first I was thinking of changing it again for something more modern, but actually when I added in all the rest of the furniture, I realized that it completely changed the dynamic of the living space. So the floor actually kind of still goes well with everything, I think. And you know, a new floor can be quite expensive, require extensive planning. It can either mean, you know, tearing up all these tiles, putting down new tiles, or it could have been a case of, you know, getting parquet or laminate floors and just layering it over the top of the tiles. But yeah, essentially I think the floor that I actually have goes quite well with the decor that I've added. So that's a good money saving tip as well. On the refurbishment. So this is just the work I've done so far. There are still a couple of other things to do, like the doors you see behind me. These are still as they were when I moved into the apartment. I would like to paint them white and change the handle. I thought about getting some completely new doors, but to be honest, you know, it's a door, it can be painted and that will change the look. And yeah, the handle is a bit old. You know, I can go to the hardware store, buy a new one, and that's kind of it. I do plan to renovate the bathroom and the kitchen as well. I won't show them in this video, but essentially, you know, they're in working order, everything's fine. But same story with the living room, essentially. They are a bit outdated in terms of the decoration and the design, and it would be really nice to kind of put something more modern in there and get a nice modern feel in the bathroom and the kitchen, because the bathroom and the kitchen, in terms of the valuation of a property, can be like two of the rooms that really help that valuation. And in the living room was just a case more of remodeling in a sense rather than completely renovating. So yeah, there's one thing I've done to the apartment which is not a visible upgrade, and it's not specifically contained to the living room, and that is thermal insulation. So in the wintertime, it does actually get really cold in Madrid, and as I'm in a part that's outside of the city of Madrid and kind of surrounded by the countryside, the temperatures are a bit more intense here. Whether it's summer or winter, you'll typically have a few degrees colder than in Madrid, or a few degrees warmer in the summer. And so for me, as you'll have seen with the air conditioning unit, for example, I really want to be kind of energy efficient, both in terms of use and cost. So by adding thermal insulation into the walls, it will reduce the need to keep the heating on in the winter for so long, and the heat that I do generate should stay within inside the property for longer. So roughly how much did all of this cost? Let's go and break it down right now. So starting with the lights, the total cost came to about 150 euros. So this takes into account the cost of the light frames you see, the energy efficient bulbs that I put in there, and also the installation. So I paid someone to install them because, electric work, and though I probably could have done it myself, I preferred to get an electrician to do this for me. The TV stand and the sofa. So the TV stand was 150 euros and the sofa was about 500 euros, but that takes into account delivery costs and setup costs. So you could probably get it maybe 50 euros cheaper if you had a car and you went and picked up the sofa and set it up yourself. And if I'm not mistaken, the discount on the sofa was about 50%. So I think before it was about 700 or 800 euros. So I really feel like I snagged a bargain there. The new curtains came to about 100 euros. So that includes the adjustable bar, the little balls that you see on the end, the supports that fix them into the wall, 2 curtains that are there, and also the tailoring of those 2 curtains to cut them down to the right size. The removal of the radiators was quite expensive, so I had 3 of them removed. Total cost 100 euros, so we can say 50 euros for the one in the living room. And then actually the work that I did myself to seal the wall and cover the wall, that only cost me about, I'd say 20 to 30 euros with all the materials that I bought from Leroy Merlin, one of the hardware stores here in Spain. It did take me time, but yeah, the monetary cost was only about 30 euros, yeah. And so the 2 most expensive items so far have been the thermal insulation of the property. So that's putting rock wool in the outer walls of the property. That came to just under 1,000 euros. And then fitting the new air conditioning units and taking out the old one came to about 1,500 euros. So the total cost of all the items that I listed there comes to about 3,300, 3,400 euros. But if we take out the air conditioning upgrade and the thermal insulation, I've spent only about 1,000 euros on remodeling my living room. Obviously, there's more work to be done and therefore more costs will come in the future, but I will do my best to manage the cost efficiency as we go through the project as well. By the way, if you guys have enjoyed seeing the results and you want to see any future developments on the channel, do leave a comment and let me know, and I'll definitely keep that in mind for future content. So with that said, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one, and let's get this money.